I'll just introduce myself. I teach in a Center for Educational Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi. I am going to also bring in Kashmir. I'm a Kashmiri, I have family in Kashmir, I've been involved with what is happening there, so my view might be slightly different, and I think that's okay, with some of the people that Urvashi has talked about. But and what I'm going to do actually, since I think before I start, or what I'm going to do, I really would like to thank ASR for bringing this whole 5 days together. It's been a wonderful experience, and I think everyone here will share that. It's been intellectually stimulating, it's been emotionally really touching and exhilarating, and I think these are dark times in India. We all feel very depressed, and I think I'll go back with a lot of hope which has come out of being here and being with everyone else. And when I say thank you to ASR, it means everyone in ASR and to everyone else who's here. So what I'm going to do, since my subject is education, I have been involved with some of the communal activism in India. We've all worked together on that, and I do feel very concerned about the ways in which education is getting communalized in India. Mani talked about it the other day. The thing is that we tend to not give enough importance to some of these things when they start to happen. And these are the areas in which actually in India the RSS and the BJP has been really invested in education. It has, like you said, BJP has taken the portfolio of what is called the Human Resource Development Ministry for Human Resource Development, which includes education and some other areas. And what they are doing is, and this has been in the news, some of those things we have protested openly because they've happened. Heads of important research institutions have been replaced in the last few years by people who have very few qualifications to be heads of those institutions, except that they belong to the Hindu fundamentalist ideology, and they've been part of the RSS in some ways. We have had, there are schools run by the RSS which comprises a huge population where the RSS is the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, which is the ideological wing of the BJP. Okay, it sets the agenda, the fundamentalist, very right-wing Hindu party. Okay, so, and what happened recently, 2 years ago, we had the Human Resource Development Minister, Manohar Joshi, who is a very proud member of the RSS. He was present at the Bagri Masjid demolition when it happened. He made statements like, we're proud of what has happened, and he's been there, and he is now in charge of the education agenda. 2 years ago, in 1998, in November of 1998, he had an education ministers conference in Delhi, and he had a proposal for a curriculum revision. And he started off with asking for the Vande Mataram to become a compulsory part of school, in schools every day, for the Vande Mataram to be sung, and the Saraswati Vandana, which are both things that, and there's been some debate around it, very Hindu, which is seen as part of something that doesn't fit in with every tradition in India, but the RSS or the BJP claims that it's Indian culture, and this whole issue of what is Indian culture, and all of that seems to come out of the Hindu tradition, and it becomes Indian across the board, and no one is allowed to contest that. But this was contested, and what didn't happen at that meeting is about 8 or 9 education ministers walked out of that conference, boycotted the left party, some representatives of left parties, educational institutions. There was actually a demonstration there, and the meeting was disrupted, and he couldn't hold the meeting, and the agenda was not passed. What has happened 2 years later is in 2000, I think end of around 2000, and the revised document, the NCERT, which is the National Council for Educational Research and Training in India, which is a national body which sets the guidelines for curricula. Though it's not directly responsible because we also have state bodies and education is a state subject in India. But there are guidelines and policies set by the national body and then have to be, followed by states. They have come out with a new curriculum document, which is called the National Curriculum Framework for School Education. Now, this document actually carries with it a lot of implications of what is on the agenda and how the educational enterprise has been working out in the last few years and what has been happening. And I want to bring out some of that. And then I talk a little bit about some researchers are starting to do in Kashmir on higher education among Muslim women, which I won't have details on, but I just want to give a general idea of what happened there. The parallel streams and how all of this comes together, and there's a reinforcing of one ideology by another, and there are people who actually get caught in the crossfire, and then how there are ways in which you can't somehow unmesh yourself from those. And they do reinforce each other, and basically the Kashmir conflict did start coming to a head. It wasn't just 84 was actually one of the starting points. And there are major incidents which you can trace it to and what has been going on. Around 90, there was this whole building up of the movement for Babri Masjid and that Rath Yatra. When was that? 89. 89. And what happened across India. And 89 is when the trouble in Kashmir actually started, and 90 came to a head. And it's absolutely going in parallel. And we're talking here about women's groups, but I remember I was in Kashmir when Farida Khan was over the phone. When he was removed. So then, when the Amritsar incident happened, the Golden Temple incident. That's 84. When that happened, that's the year Farida Khan, who had been elected, in a, sensitive, fair election for Kashmir, elected by the people, and one of the few elections that, there had been large amount of majority vote for him. He was just removed from office by Indira Gandhi. And, the state of Kashmir at that time, I was in Srinagar, everybody was on the streets. There was no curfew, there was a strike, there was not a soul on the streets. The press, I was watching television that night, and they talked about how things are going on normally in Kashmir. And there is not only a silence, and there is not a censorship on the Indian press, and I know for a fact, and we all know that this can be reported, but we know there's a kind of silence on Kashmir which the press feels very committed to as well, in a sense. So it's a national question. It's a question of Pakistan and India. It brings up too many uncomfortable issues, and do we just gloss over it? It was really like a propaganda film. I was watching clips of normal life going on in Srinagar, but nothing had been normal there. And obviously footage from some other time. So it has happened, and this has continued. There have been some very good stories on Kashmir in the Indian press from time to time. But by and large, the Indian press also tries to avoid Kashmir. It's not we are against it totally, but you don't want to talk about it because I think you just don't know how to deal with it. So going back to this curriculum document, I just point out something. It's a very cleverly placed document because precisely of the fact that 2 years ago when he did try to change the policy, it received, and it was so obviously communal that it was rejected outright. This document starts with all kinds of and one of the first things is social equality. It has all the right objectives of reduction of poverty, elimination of poverty, gender equity, all religions to be equal. But if you look at it a little carefully, I just talk about some of the things that it does, which is actually why it's a dangerous document. And also some of the things that the BJP has been doing, and if one contextualizes it, why it becomes even more dangerous as a document for a national curriculum framework. it actually lays heavy stress on religion and spiritualism. It talks about education as being based on religion and spiritualism. It talks about the fact that it should include all Indian religions. But the fact is that it actually talks of education coming out of religion. It doesn't talk of a non-religious foundation for education. And if you are not religious, where do you get your values from? It is a silent of that. And then, basically, if you're, it has to come from one religion or another, whichever religion that is. And, given the context of what the polity in India is, which that religion will be where the values come from. It talks about spiritualism, and it talks not only about spiritualism, but it talks about in the educational context of an IQ, the intelligence quotient, which actually psychologists have debated deeply and nobody talks about it anymore. Evaluation of students on an IQ, on an emotional quotient, and a spiritual quotient. And it talks about evaluating people on this way, taking so on the spiritual quotient. The emotional quotient is talked about as children who are drug addicts, who are into alcoholism and promiscuity. So this is going to be, children are expected to be evaluated on that. So who the children who can be out of school. It talks about this notions of nationalism and patriotism, which are really, really strongly emphasized. Now, this is something that actually has been a tradition in the whole agenda of education right from the time of partition. But the context was very different, and that agenda was a very secular agenda. That agenda was based on secular principles, but talked of nationalism as national unity and patriotism, and of course all forming these borders and getting the people together through education. But when the BJP talks about nationalism, it's a dangerous thing because it's defined by otherwise, and in the context of the Hindu bomb and all kinds of other things, that patriotism has been something that's very vicious and very Hinduized in India today, and a lot of communities feel totally marginalized when nationalism is talked about. It's not Muslims alone. It talks of, Sanskrit is talked about as, it makes Sanskrit compulsory through about 8 classes of schooling, saying that this is the foundation of Indian culture and this is the language from which most Indian languages come out. It talks about the Indian tradition. Traditionally, India has been, this is from the document, India has been perceived as a source of fulfillment, material, sensuous and spiritual. Consisting primarily of an agrarian society, the social design of which emphasized self-sufficiency, contentment and operational autonomy for each village. The principles of non-interference and non-aggression were emphasized. The economic structure of the country was designed on the basic principle of the distribution of resources, not the this is the traditional Indian economy was designed on this.
No caste system.
No. Okay. A religious philosophy was centered around self-realization as the main purpose, allowed one to surrender oneself without any feelings of guilt or fear or punishment. This is the tradition within which exactly. So it actually talks of things like this in it, and women, it starts off by equality and gender. And what it actually says here is to recognize that we have a tradition and we have to recognize the best features of each gender and the best Indian tradition. And that's going to define the place of women.
Division of labor will remain intact. Sexual division of labor, political division.
Yeah, it will remain intact because it goes to say somewhere else that women have to bring up children, they will be responsible for population control, and it's actually stated as a document. Okay, I try not to make it too long. What has come along with this document, which is really frightening, because it's not just, women, we know within a system like this where they fall and what happens to the issue of how women will be looked at. There is also another document which has our Prime Minister invited two industrialists, large industrial houses, signs of two of these homes, Mukesh Ambani and Kumar Mangalam Birla. These are two of our biggest industries. They have prepared a policy framework for reforms in education in India, which has come along with this. So it's really a double attack because this document talks all through that we have to retain these two ways, because India, one, that globalization comes out of an Indian tradition, but it's in the Sanskrit name called Kumbha some.
That is the whole world is.
The whole world is a family, and this is an Indian tradition. Vasudeva Kutumbakam. So that is the concept of globalization is the same, and we have to have this combined thing of moving with the times to in our public life to move with globalization and technology, but to keep our traditions alive, so which would be in the family spaces as opposed to religion and other traditions. This just a little bit. If I have to this is vision for education in India by this. Industrial, these people giving us advice on education or how to frame education policy, I suppose won't come as a surprise if I tell you that the main thing is output and where India is going to be in the position. It's a very well worked out document. Obviously they've got educational agendas or the whole thing within education. How teaching should happen and what is the best way from all over the world. So it's very sophisticated in those ways, and education has to be child-centered, it has to be interesting, it has to be interactive, you have to have computers in every school, every village. And that primary education should be fully funded and the state owes the responsibility to that, but all education beyond the secondary level should become private because it has to become competitive. You cannot have non-competition which India has had for too long. But one of the deadly things that's there is about India being a labour-oriented society, and this is from the document. We have rigid labour laws that protect the interests of 300 lakh employees in the government, public sector and organised private sector. The large numbers of workers in the unorganized sector and agriculture have no such protection, but it goes on to say these labour laws hinder the creation of several 100 million new jobs that will be required for our growing population. Rigid labour laws are also hampering investments that have high employment elasticity, much needed by populous nation. Labour-related issues are centre stage in our current phase of reforms. So, those should be.
Now, what's the trailers?
Yeah, I mean, seeing it clearly that it's a conjunction of the way we put it. Women, but we also know that within the labour force, the people affected most by all of these laws, and I'm not an economist at all, but enough for that research to show that women are suffering greatly through that. Okay, this is what is happening in India, and this is actually now, this document is being debated, there is some resistance trying to come out of universities, and some educational institutions, and people are trying to, I don't know how much force that will have and if they will go ahead with it or not. Because when was this benefit? So many things. One, the NCE Act is headed by someone who was brought there recently, which brought out this document, and the committee, the board of directors consists of someone who has probably been claiming that he actually shot Muslims during the partition. He claimed that at the time that he was put on the board of directors of the National Council of Education, Research and Training. So it's coming out in that context of documents. When we talk about religious ideology being the backbone of values and principles of education in the world, in Kashmir, I briefly want to talk about what happened. Actually, Kashmir, the valley especially, was one of the most backward areas in our states for pre-independence India. It had very low, so it's actually amazing that the first women's college that came up in Kashmir was in the early 50s. What happened in Kashmir also was that, which is actually a wonderful history, which has, a wonderful, I think, what Kashmiris brought was this, the Naya Kashmir document in the I'm not very sure of the dates, which would be at the 1930s, somewhere knows it, was a document and a program envisaged by a group of Kashmiri Pandits, Muslims. Sheikh Abdullah was the major force behind it. It was a kind of progressive group of Kashmiris which looked at new Kashmir within the Maharaja's Kashmir, who had neglected the history of the place is quite complicated. We had this Dogra ruler who had no interest in the place, the Kashmiri Pandits, these communities, the Kashmiri Pandit community, the Kashmiri Muslim community. And a major part of the administration, an important position, and the elite was a Punjabi elite actually there along with Rajput, who had come from, I suppose, different parts of Punjab. So the Kashmiri community itself, the education levels were very low. It took a very long time. At the time of partition, there were 2 men's colleges. But the education agenda came from the Naya Kashmir document, which also was part of the document was also the land reforms movement, which happened in Kashmir, with one of the first states that had land reforms and redistribution of land after partition. And this was partly that. Education spread quite fast after independence. In the 50s, one of the things that started, also what happened in Kashmir, because education came so late, it didn't go with the history of the rest of the subcontinent in some senses. Some of the states, it didn't happen everywhere. It wasn't then education only for the elites, because there was a time when elite women needed to be educated to be good wives, etc. This was actually a middle class who just went to college and went on to higher education to get jobs, to become professionals. I interviewed several of the women who were the first students of their college, and all of them had been working and went on to higher studies and jobs and looking for. It wasn't just to be there. And in fact, a lot of the slightly more feudal Kashmir didn't have a great upper class or anything. People who were more landed families, etc., didn't send their daughters to school for a longer time than the middle classes did, college and higher education. But what has happened, why I'm bringing that in, is that's how it started. But since this movement has started in Kashmir for an independent Kashmir, one of the things that has suffered most is education. I'm going to say some of the things that Urvashi has been saying, and since we're running out of time, I don't need to say it. Most people know what's happening in Kashmir, and we know what's happening in Kashmir largely also because of the reports that have come out of Kashmir. So when people feel that there is no one interested in Kashmir and it hasn't been done, and one of the first reports was brought up by 3 women, one of them was Nandita Haxer, who had been working in the Northeast. And, I remember a press conference at which this incident had just taken place, and I was very emotional about it. When Maulvi Farooq had died, and there was a procession going through the old city, and there was firing on that procession. And I know for a fact, you always doubt yourself, which side is giving the right story. This was right outside our family home, in the old city where that shooting had taken place, where the army started shooting at the procession, because they kept saying then that there was firing from within the procession. It was a totally unarmed, peaceful procession of men, women, children. They started shooting at random and killed people. And I was asking Nandita about this, and she said this has been going on for years in the Northeast. And no one talks about it, but because it's Kashmir now, and it's an issue just closer to home and closer to Delhi in a sense, people here talk about this, but this is exactly the kind of thing that has been happening in the Northeast for years and years. I also remember when this front was first formed, it was another moment, and it was a terrible experience for me, because there was, the parents of the disappeared children. So in the heat of summer in, I think, July or August, this group of parents came to Delhi, old men and women, some of them, and they had never stepped out of Kashmir with this way of looking for our sons, and please help us. All we could do was give them an appointment with Tiger, who promised that he would, Rajesh Pilot, who was one of the ministers, was slightly sympathetic to the Kashmir cause, and he promised he would have some of these children traced. Nothing happened after that. They felt a little better when they went back home, and they sat there and tried and talked about these experiences of what is happening. It's been happening ever since then, and it has been documented, and all the documentation is there. It's not true that it isn't. But what has also happened, which you see there, is actually the other side of this Islamization of the state. You wouldn't see before 90 little girls walking in the street, all with their heads covered. Every child who goes to school today and is not in a car or a bus has a scarf around their head. There was a time that was quite publicized, is when women were asked to wear the burqa, and there were acid attacks on their faces. That's the one time actually there was an organized procession of women which came out of the streets and said, we will not accept this. So they accepted not to wear burqas, but they had to cover their heads. In the university there was policing of women, and there would the squads of militants policing to see if women and men are sitting together, if they're talking to each other, and no woman would dare to do it about 5 years ago. I was in the university and they fought militant groups would go around the university and they would have very strict And one that has happened, and that's happening there. And some of the question, I think, she preempted me, because it's very difficult for me as a Kashmiri. I can see this, it's not just that women are marginalized, there is not a single woman spokesperson, who, even a face that is representing any group which talks. You talk about Kashmiris representing, so they're not a single woman. There is not a representative of the Kashmiri Pandit community. I have very mixed reactions to what happened in the Kashmiri Pandit community, because it is a fact that Jagmohan had come to Kashmir as the governor. He was sent there on a mission. He did, there was some dialogue with the Kashmiri Hindus, where they were asked to leave, and there was an exodus in a way which is still very suspicious, where they all left on a certain, in a kind of, not all, but let me tell you, it was the elite Kashmiri Pandits who did that, who left, who had opportunities outside of Kashmir, who had relatives outside of Kashmir, who went, who could settle down, who could get jobs. There is a huge Kashmiri Pandit population which comes from the villages who have lost everything they had there, who are in refugee camps in Jammu, who are languishing, waiting to go home, who have never been outside of Kashmir or the heat of the plains, and they're living in one-room shacks. People who had land, enough land to look after their families, homes in the villages, who live fairly decent lives, have been there for the last 10 years and are still there. And they don't have a voice in this. I mean, when we talk of, I can see that we talk of a nation or an independent nation, and I don't think I'm the person to decide, or I have the authority to say what I think should happen. But I have very deep reservations and questions about trying to think what happens. When we're questioning this whole idea of nationality, why are we so keen to give another nation? To create another nation with boundaries and other things, and who is going to be within that nation, where are the women, where are the pandits, where are other kind, there is again this same kind of phenomenon. The rich families in Kashmir all send their children out. The children go to college, and the very rich are sending their children abroad, the not so rich are all over India. And what happens is, the boys get to go first and the girls go later, or may not go at all. The poor don't have that access, and if they can't, they're the ones who suffer. So it's not just women. Of course, women become doubly victimized, but it is the poor. There are hundreds of thousands of Kashmiri laborers who have to leave, and are all over India as refugees. But they don't. There's not even enough talk of that, and I can see in some way this community thing comes back to me, because I myself, I can see what is happening to the women. But when you sit with a group of Kashmiris and they talk of what is happening to the men, and of course the women will keep saying that, look at what is happening to our sons, our husbands, and what is my suffering compared to that. And I feel it, and I don't know where the feeling for community comes. I start thinking that, it's such a, so much is happening here. Is it only the women who are suffering, and what is going on? Because there is just suffering at all levels, and it is happening. But there is also, education is one that Muslims have taken, because of these kinds of the kind of context that exists. Girls have dropped out of school in large numbers in villages. One of the first things that the militants targeted was schools all over Kashmir. Village schools, every school was burned down. And that already creates problems, because if there's a larger school, in a bigger village, the boys will go and the girls will stop going. There is security forces posted around every route. The girls will not go to school because they are targeted, there are remarks passed, you can disappear or you can be picked up, and you're really scared to go out in any of those areas. All of this is happening there. So, and one really needs to question, is it enough to take just to stand without actually, examining issues, especially in the light of all of the things that we talk about, and how, is it enough to say that, Azadi for Kashmir, or, to decide. Certainly the people there need to have a voice, and, I don't see much of it in all the fora you have for discussions on Kashmir. I was in Kashmir in October, and this huge meeting called by an ex-militant who is now a part of the political process. And there were about 30 prominent Indians, ex-bureaucrats, ex-army people, all sitting there and giving talk after talk about how their Kashmir is decided. So I asked them, why all of you get? Come and tell us that Kashmir is decided. There's a meeting, and that's what keeps happening everywhere in Delhi. And, there are a few people, but you don't see Kashmiris, they don't see women there. You don't see any representative of really, if you looked at class-wise, or you have a certain kind of representation. And I don't know as a Kashmiri what I want for Kashmir.